Nigeria's real estate sector continues to lag other sectors of the economy in terms of growth. We have liquidity issues, land ownership issues, annual rent, and an underdeveloped mortgage market, which are a number of hurdles that still need to be scaled. Joining me to discuss this sector, along with a look at oil prices, is Financial Derivatives Company Limited research analyst Temitope Olugbile. Temitope, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning.
Thanks for joining us on the Global Business Report. So I believe we're starting with all things real estate. Is that right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so let's get to our first slide here as we discuss the real estate market. So I believe, all right, take it away. What do we? Oh, I see all red. Red.
There's one green.
One green there.
So,
okay,
so, the MBS released the GDP report on Monday, and, real estate remains in the negative region. So if you look at the charts, the thing about the charts is just when you think you're getting better, it goes back down.
Right.
And, when you think you're getting better, it's back down again. So now for Q4 2019, it contracted by 3.45%.
Right.
So we had this blip where in quarter one of 2019 where, we thought it was the break of a new dawn for the real estate sector. It expanded by 0.93, but like I mentioned, it was a blip because it wasn't sustained. So the thing about the real estate sector is there are challenges both on the demand and the supply side.
Okay.
So for the demand side, we have that, the dwindling consumer disposable income, like you said, the sector is still feeling the pinch of that. And what could boost that and what could help that is the mortgage sector, which you rightly said before is really underdeveloped. And that's what is affecting home ownership rates. Compared to Nigeria's peers of South Africa, Kenya's home ownership, we are far below what we can be. And then for the supply side, we have that, the sector needs more government funds / interventions.
Right.
So you see that the focus of the FGN recently or over the years has been, the agri sector, we have the manufacturing sector on the top of their minds. But when it comes to the housing part of, the Nigerian economy, it seems not to be getting as much traction. And if you see, the thing about the housing sector is it's very important to the economy of any country.
Right.
If you take it back to 2008/2009 global financial crisis, you saw that what triggered it, do you understand, was the crash.
Housing, yeah.
Do you understand, in the housing market? So that shows the importance of it. And if you also look at the hierarchy of needs, you'll see that it is one of the key basic needs. So there is a need for increased intervention / funds in the market. And if you also look at the different subsectors, so real estate is a sector that has subsectors. If you look at the residential part of it, there are also challenges there because you see that there's not enough supply. That's where we talk about the housing deficit. There's not enough supply to meet the demand. If you look at the retail subsector rather, you would also see that the large malls are having empty stores because these owners are having to face higher rent prices and service charges of these really expensive malls. And then if you also look at the commercial side of it, the grade A office spaces, basically the top of the range office spaces, are also having increased vacancy factors. So and real estate, like the third point says, is a lagging indicator, yes, but this has been like 11 quarters since we exited our recession in 2017, Q2 of 2017.
Right.
I mean, real estate should have caught up by now, but because of these challenges, we're still where we are.
Cool, and thank you for that explanation. So I think you may already have mentioned this, but let's go through some of these noteworthy trends. Yes. Okay, so you've already mentioned about... This, give me 1 second to tell you a story. I was in Abuja for a telco. One of the telcos was testing 5G technology. It was just a test, so for our viewers, 5G is not here yet. In fact, I don't think 4G is here. Well, we have some 4G in certain areas. But anyway, and my ride-sharing ride back to the airport, Nnamdi Azikiwe back to Lagos, there we passed an estate, yes, when I'm looking at these abandoned buildings, and it was empty. And the driver told me that there were 1 or 2 buildings that had been abandoned for 9 years. I thought she was, making that up. But so this seems to be a really...
It's a trend. And like you mentioned, it's not just even in Lagos. It's spreading across the Federation. And why are these buildings even abandoned? Because of the cost of building, right? And these trespassers, of course, because back to the housing deficit, if they had a better alternative, I doubt that they would be, occupying abandoned buildings. But because there are no better housing alternatives for them, and there's no regulation stopping them from, just occupying a building and converting it into their house.
Yes.
That's why you see what you see. I mean, I really don't blame them. So that's one of the trends we see, and you also see that there's a reuse of existing properties from residential to office. So what is happening now is that before there used to be a demand for 4-bedroom, 5-bedroom apartments, but there's now an increased demand for the 1-, 2-bedroom apartments. And why? Because you have the increase in the young population who have maybe come from other states to Lagos to urbanization, back to the urbanization issue, and they are demanding 1- or 2-bedroom, because really, how many bedrooms do they need? They're just one person. So the former houses that were 4- or 5-bedroom apartments, they're being converted to office spaces now, because developers are saying that there's more demand in the affordable and student housing side of things. So that's why
and I want to touch on a point that you've made there with this adaptive reuse of existing properties. AMCON has seized a few buildings, right? We can see them here in Lagos, right? And so you have these big red letters across property of AMCON. Some of them are just sitting there. They could. I mean, there's one in where, the Ikoyi or somewhere, huge building, multiple, floors and rooms and so on. But they don't, because if you own it, you might as well either rent it out or do something. I know there's some legal issues there, but some of these buildings are just being held by them for so long, and I think it keys into what you're talking about here. Okay, and then what about similar matter there?
It's really just a similar matter. You're seeing that there's been the existing properties that we have. You're now converting them into other things. So really, point 2 and 3 are really similar matters, and that's what we're seeing as trends in the. Okay,
and so I think you have the next slide here is possibly an outlook. Is your outlook positive?
so even before we even get to the outlook, part of the trends that we're seeing in the retail space, for instance, is that we're seeing increase, because the large malls, there's a lot of capital outlay that goes into these things.
Yeah, so it's expensive.
It's really expensive. Developers are needing loans to build those kind of buildings. So what we are seeing now is increased supply of neighborhood malls. So basically your mid-sized malls that are not as large as what you have in the Palms or Ikeja City Mall, that are not that large. Your neighborhood malls that would just be medium-sized, concise, and still meet your retail needs. So there's that. There's also that trend in the retail sector. So if we look at the outlook, we're seeing that this is divided into the different subsectors. So the residential space, let's start with that. We're seeing increased co-living spaces. So basically, you're not to save cost. All of this is in a bid for developers to save their building costs. You're seeing that they are looking more into where you are co-living with other people, right? And they're also adopting flexible payment plans, because if they keep supplying, but there's no corresponding demand, it's only to their own detriment.
They're making losses.
They're basically making losses. So they have to meet flexible payment. They have to be flexible in their payment plans. No longer, it's either 2 years or nothing. You either pay me my 2 years. They're beginning to be more flexible in the things like that. And we're also seeing that there's diaspora investment. So, the Nigerians abroad are looking to, bring their money here, invest in safe haven. Obviously, they don't want something that will take their investments away. So real estate remains a safe haven asset, and at a time like this, really, activity should be booming in the sector, because we have that it is a hedge against inflation, when we've seen that inflation has been on the rise in recent times, and there's no end in sight for that. So
we've only got a couple minutes. So can you quickly give us a point or two on the commercial on the commercial side? What was your point?
So the commercial side, obviously, grade A, the top of the range office spaces we're still going to see increased vacancy rates for that. But, people will now start to look into co-working spaces. So basically different companies cohabiting in one space. So there's that. And in the retail side, we've seen, like I mentioned, increased acceptance of mid-sized malls. And, factors that will drive your retail success is your entertainment features, your accessibility,
so additional add-ons. You got to have add-ons.
You have to have if you want to be successful.
Good stuff. So positive, but we'll have to see how the numbers look later. Okay, so quickly now, oil, though. Everybody's talking about oil. Any quick outlook? I mean, coronavirus effects, yes?
That's really just it. It's just the coronavirus effect, and, the effect it will have on demand. But the good news is that OPEC and its allies are meeting next week. So now the market is just hinging oil price outlook on what is the outcome of that meeting. Bear in mind that the technical committee had earlier suggested we've
Russia
not heard
said no.
anything. Do you understand? Russia hasn't gotten on board with that. So we are hoping that in this next meeting they consider what could be the impact. We are now at $54 per barrel, and it could keep going down as you see the coronavirus spread to Italy, South Korea, Iran.
Algeria,
do you understand?
Austria.
So they really, really need to do something about this. If not, what you have is just an oversupplied market because there's no demand.
Right.
Yes.
Solid stuff. So in Temitope Olugbile of Financial Derivatives Company, we thank you so much for your insights.